Welcome to the Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. Today, we are live on the air from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., asking for your financial support and sharing the great work of various ministries, authors, speakers, clergy, and local radio hosts that impact our local Charlotte community. Carolina Catholic Media Network is 100% listener supported, and we need your financial support to continue broadcasting the truth of Jesus Christ. Call 1-800-857-2909. That's 1-800-857-2909 to make your tax-deductible pledge. Operators are standing by right now to take your call, or you can donate online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. Thank you for your loyal listenership. We hope you enjoy this special Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon program.
And hello, everybody, and welcome into this wonderful Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. My name is Bill Snyder, and it is wonderful to be with you. We are asking for your financial support. The number is 1-800-857-2909, 1-800-857-2909 to help keep wonderful local programming on the air. And, you know, folks, we are so very blessed to have so many amazing Catholic speakers, authors, ministries joining us here for the Share-A-Thon and spotlighting their ministries, talking about why Catholic radio is so very important and what they're doing out there in the world. So, you know, understanding that, you know, we can't bring this to you. We cannot bring this to you without your financial support. So as we bring on this hour's guest, we have Jonathan Fanning with us, and he is going to be talking to us today. And so, Jonathan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us from Who Are You Becoming? So share with us a little bit about your ministry.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's great to be with you. And, I spent most of my life, I think, chasing the wrong questions, chasing small questions, chasing mediocre questions, chasing yesterday questions, chasing questions that weren't inspiring. And I write books. I speak all over the world. I do leadership work. But somewhere in the middle of my career, early on, actually, in my career, I was helping some of the biggest companies in turnarounds. Helping companies like car companies, the big three car companies that clothing companies, some of the biggest in the world. Some of them, you have their clothing in your closet. I guarantee it. No matter who you are, you have some of their clothing in your closet. And I would help these companies in turnarounds. And it's always, always, always a leadership challenge. If the culture's bad, if the productivity's bad, if you're not confronting reality, there's always a leadership challenge in there. But in the middle of all this, I was what the world would describe as successful. I had a title, I had phenomenal titles. I had a client list, a phenomenal client list. I had a great income. I had a great lifestyle. I was flying on corporate jets all over the place. And in the middle of all this, I had this uneasiness. I had this this sense of you're doing something wrong. And I couldn't figure it out. But I got a wake-up call. And I am not alone in getting a wake-up call. I guarantee every one of your listeners, everyone, tuning in, whether it's on the radio or whether it's on video, every one of us, we get wake-up calls, don't we? We get these wake-up calls. Sometimes they come into our life like a frying pan hitting us over the head. And that was one of my wake-up calls. I was traveling a lot for work. And sometimes on my trips, I had to drive a lot. And I was doing one of these long drives because, small airport, connecting flights. I said, forget it. I'll do the long drive. And I'm driving through Western Pennsylvania, Interstate 80. And it's a warm day, cold night. It was March 3rd, Sunday night. I was heading to one of my clients, actually in Detroit, car company. And black ice. The car starts sliding on the highway. And two tractor trailers played hockey with my car, like a hockey puck, just spun it around. The first one hit it, and the second one hit it. And we were in Western Pennsylvania, where it's mountainous, so there are guardrails on some sections of the road on both sides. And the car just bounced back and forth from these guardrails, spinning and being hit twice. The second truck hit my door. I was in the passenger seat. I was traveling with my brother and his girlfriend. And when I regained consciousness, the car was still on the road. It was still sitting on the highway because of these guardrails. It was actually stopped in the left lane facing forward. If you saw pictures of the car, and if you look me up, jonathanfanning.com, look up my website, you'll find pictures of the car on there. You wouldn't think anyone walks away from this. Well, I regain consciousness and I kick at the metal that's left over of the door, and I'm able to get out. There's no door left, because one of the trucks hit my door, turned my seat into about a quarter of its size. I ended up in the middle of the car. But I kick at the metal, I get out of the car, I stand next to the car, and I'm shaking. For the next couple of days, I couldn't really walk. But in that moment with the adrenaline and the cortisol, I'm able to stand there, but I'm trembling. And I'm looking in the back window of the car, and my older brother, and we're only a year and a half apart, he's unconscious, and there's just a pool of blood growing around his head and the white and the cloth interior. And I reach through, there's no windows left in the car. I reach through the glass shards of what the back window used to be. And I touch him and I say, Andy. And he's not moving and nothing. And I can't tell if there's any breathing. And I'm trying to just figure out, what do you do? Right? Because you had CPR training, right? Do you move him? Do you not move him? But he's curled up, he's crunched up. And I'm thinking, if he can't move, maybe I need to move him. But if he injured his back or his neck, his vertebrae, maybe I don't move him. And I'm petrified for a half a second. But that's about all I had, because then I realized that I'm still on the highway and there are cars coming at me at 70 miles an hour. And I'm standing in the middle of the road, and the car is towards the left side of the road. So I look and I hear horns blaring. And, it's dark out, but I see the headlights coming at me, and I turn and I run to get away from the traffic, and I run towards the side of the road. I'm maybe 2 steps from the side of the road, and I see this 3-foot high concrete barrier, and I think, just jump it, just leap over it. I played basketball in college. I could jump a 3-foot barrier like that, and I'm about to jump it, and I had this thought, don't do it, because I couldn't see what was on the other side. And honestly, how often is that the case in our lives? We can't see what's on the other side. And I decide to grab onto this concrete barrier and swing my legs over. And then I find out that I'm dangling. Warm day, cold night, black ice. We were on a bridge in Western Pennsylvania. My feet were about 106 feet above the ground. And I'm dangling there, clinging to this guardrail, 3-foot concrete guardrail, clinging to it. Cars are sliding by. This big full-size white van slides by and actually bumps into the guardrail and spins, but doesn't hit me, and it doesn't hit the car. When the traffic comes to a stop, I climb back over the guardrail and I stumble back to the car, and my brother has regained consciousness. But that first truck launched his head into the pillar in between the front and back windows of the car and shattered the left side of his skull, right in his cheekbone. And I see him, and the dome lights on, and it's just this eerie swelling and discoloration of his face already. And he can't even look at me. He can't make eye contact. His brain is swelling, and he looks over my head, and I'm like, Andy. And we were close. Maybe if you're listening, maybe you had some close friends, family, siblings, cousins when you were growing up. We were close enough that we used to beat the living tar out of each other, until he went to college and took Taekwondo and got his black belt, and then we didn't fight quite as often unless I could get close and give him a quick shot. But I'm looking at him and I say, Andy, and he can't look, he can't make eye contact, and he can't make a word. He can't form a word. And he looks over my head and he says, well, they airlift him to Pittsburgh from Clarion, Pennsylvania, from where we were. They airlift him, helicopter him to Pittsburgh to work on his brain and his skull. And they do all kinds of tests on us. I had some internal bleeding, but nothing major somehow. But it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call. In the middle of this career, it was a wake-up call. And Bill, have you ever had a wake-up call?
Oh, absolutely. Plenty of them in my life. But wow, your wake-up call is quite unbelievable almost. And so, Jonathan, thank you for sharing that trauma, and thank you for sharing that wake up call with our listeners and our viewers. It's if you're not watching this, you're just watching a man who's incredibly passionate right now. So it's amazing to hear your story, and I'll just want to let you continue. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah. Well, the lesson, one of the lessons I got in this experience was that we all get wake up calls. And the problem is I'm incredibly good at ignoring them. I'm incredibly good at getting hit in the head with the frying pan and not doing anything with it. We spent a lot of time in hospitals over the few weeks after that accident. And thank God my brother recovered. You wouldn't even know this happened if you saw him today. Of course, sometimes we pick on him, say, how's the stuff? How's the plate in your head? But he's totally fine. He actually designs transmissions for high performance cars, for Mercedes and BMW and one of the latest Ford Mustangs and Corvette. And you wouldn't know it happened. But this wake up call got me thinking. And it got me thinking, what are you doing with your life? Who has defined success in your life? And I wish I could say it happened overnight, but it didn't. I slowly started asking some better questions. And I want to dig into two of them. Number one is who are you becoming? Who are you becoming? What kind of a person are you becoming? If you and I meet a year from now, or even 2-3 months from now, even a few weeks from now, would you be able to say that you're more patient than you were a few weeks ago, a few months ago? Would you be able to say you're becoming more focused? You have more courage. You're better at actually forgiving people, whether that's you, people in your life, or even I meet people all the time that they're struggling to forgive God because God gave them something that they're not happy with. And they're struggling to forget, God, you shouldn't have done that. You should have handled that differently. And I mean, a year from now, will you be more forgiving? Will you be more patient? Will you be more focused? Will you have more courage? Will you have more passion and energy in your life? And I started to look at that question and say, you have a chance to practice this all the time. See, I played high school basketball and baseball, and then I went on to play college baseball and basketball. And I think anyone who's ever played any kind of a sport or any kind of a musical instrument or learned any language, we get that there's a big difference between being at practice and deliberate practice. There's a big difference between showing up at the court, like we have a piano in my house. And we've had the piano in my house for many years now. And if I open the keyboard and start hitting the notes, people come from every angle and say, please stop. This is not beautiful. If I wanted to get good at the piano, I would need to sit down and say, I need to figure out how to play a few notes, at least with one hand. At least with one finger, and I would need to maybe pick one song and work through it. I might need to pick Amazing Grace and play, and play the notes slowly and figure out the timing. But I would need deliberate practice. And this question of who are you becoming? I realized I had no blueprint. I had no plan. I had no practice schedule for becoming more patient or focused or courageous. And I realized I needed one. And I realized, I went through GE's leadership development program right out of college. It's always considered one of the best in the world. But most of us in the program, most of the time, we weren't looking for game changers. We were looking for proof that we were already pretty good leaders. We were looking for maybe fill in the box on the resume so that we could move up in our careers or move on in our careers. And I started looking for game changers. And I want to challenge everybody listening, everybody watching. I want to challenge you look right now, today, just in your today, for a game changer in the context of who are you becoming. A game changer in the context of who are you becoming. You could look backwards in life too, but it's so much easier to look right now. Like, for example, I started saying, if I had a simple process to become a better listener. I don't know if any of you are good at nodding people on. Bill, you ever nod people on?
Oh, absolutely. I've been doing it for the last 24 hours here on this Share-A-Thon, right? I mean, intentional listening is an incredibly hard thing to do, right? It's just an incredibly hard thing to do. But yes, it's something that we all have to work on, and it's it's beautiful to hear the challenge from you.
Yeah. I sat down and I started looking for these game changers, and I'll go back to the listening in a moment, but I watched the rebuilding of a bridge on the Hudson River. I used to live in Nyack, New York, right along the Hudson River. And there's the Tappan Zee Bridge right there. It's about 3 miles wide, and they rebuilt it over the course of several years. But for 1 year, we lived right near there, and I would take my daughters down and we'd play in the park right near the bridge. And I'd say, oh, they're putting a new bridge there. And my daughters, as they were, growing up, they'd say, where's the bridge? Is that the new bridge? And I would say, no, they're really not doing anything yet. And then one day I realized they were doing something. What they did for about a year is they pounded these massive, massive columns, or you could call them pillars, or round cylinders. They pounded these columns, these pillars, into the ground under the Hudson River. They pounded about 1,000 of these pillars into the ground under the Hudson River. And then they put the bridge up like Legos. They put a level on, they put another level on. But for a year, all they did was pound pillars. And it hit me that the process of who are you becoming is a lot like that. There's two problems with it, or 2 steps to it. Have you picked a pillar, and do you have a simple process to drive that pillar into your life? And let's go back to listening or connecting with people. I just figured I need a simple process to practice that. So one day I decided, I was traveling a ton. I speak all over the world, and I was traveling to Des Moines, Iowa. I did a keynote for the American Hospital Association in Des Moines, Iowa. And I'm on this plane, a connecting flight through Chicago to Des Moines. And the flight is an hour and 17 minutes. An hour and 17 minutes. And I know that because before I got on the flight, I said, I will practice listening to the person who sits next to me. I'll practice really asking questions that they'll want to talk about. And I'll practice listening. So I get on the plane, I sit down, and I'm waiting, and I see someone walking down the aisle of the plane. And she's talking as she walks. She's talking to herself as she walks. And she comes, and you could tell she likes to talk. I don't know if you know anyone who's a talker in your world. I think all of us have a few talkers somewhere in our world. And she sits next to me. And I'll be honest, who are you becoming? It's not always a fun question. I thought, today's my chance to practice listening. I'll practice listening to the first person, whoever sits next to me on the plane seat. And see, you can make a game out of this. You could say, you know what? After 1 p.m. today, the first person I interact with, I'll practice listening to that person. Or you could say, you know what? For 1 minute, because I'm awful at this, for 1 minute today, 1 minute, I will practice listening to someone. And then take a look at, see how you did. How'd you do? Well, this woman sits down next to me and she starts talking. I don't even say a word. She starts talking. My immediate thought was, open a book, open your laptop, check your emails, take out your phone. You could practice listening tomorrow. That was my thought. And then I thought, no. So I love to ask myself this simple question. It's a brutal reality question. It's 0 to 10. How are you doing with that one right now? 10 is world class. 10 is world class. 0 is not. And I was doing close to 0 when she first sat down next to me. And I thought, no, get closer to 10. Just see if you can do it for a minute or two. You don't have to do it for the whole hour and 17 minutes. Minute or two, just really, really listen to her. Because everyone on the planet needs someone to listen to them. You know, people don't take their own lives. People don't commit suicide because they were hungry or out of money. They do it because they're lonely every single time. We have, this challenge with, shootings in this country. The people that do those things, they're not worried about finances. They're not worried about, they don't feel important in their lives somewhere. And you and I, that gift of just being with someone, if you did that just for a few minutes every single day, even if you just said, you know what, I'll do it on Mondays. Every week I'll do it for a few minutes on Monday. Close your eyes for a second and just say, God, help me to see the ripple effect. Just help me to get a glimpse of the ripple effect that might create. If I just did this for a few minutes every Monday, once a week. Maybe you do it on Sunday. Maybe you go to church on Sunday. You say, you know what, I'm gonna actually ask somebody a question after church and listen to them. And maybe I'll ask 2 or 3 questions. Tell me about that. What are you excited about lately? And just listen. And catch yourself, right? Because you don't stay at 10 world-class, engaged listening. You go closer to 0 all the time, don't you? Try to catch yourself a few times. Can you make it through a minute once a week with one person? See, I didn't make it through an hour and 17 minutes on that flight. I caught myself over and over and over and over again, going down to closer to 0. And then I'd get, how do I get back? 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 You know what? Ask her a question that she'd be interested in, and so are you. And so are you. See, on this journey of who are you becoming, there's part 2 of it. There's part 2 of the question. Part 2 of the question is, who are you helping the people around you to become? Who are you helping the people around you to become? I want you to honestly, I challenge you to do this. Close your eyes for 10 seconds and think of a person. Think of a person who you would not be who you are today were it not for their influence. 10 seconds, close your eyes. Think about a person like that. I wouldn't be the person I am. I wouldn't be the parent I am. I wouldn't be I wouldn't take work the way I do. I wouldn't treat people the way I do. I wouldn't be as responsible as I am. I wouldn't have as much fun in my life. I wouldn't have as much peace. Something would be missing were it not for that person's influence in your life. You got somebody? You have somebody? See, I know the answer to that. You have a few people, don't you? You have a few people. Maybe it's somebody, maybe it's a sports coach you had when you were 12. I had a Little League coach when I was 12 years old, Little League All-Star team. And he said, look, if you go home from practice and you're not filthy, you can't prove to anyone that you were at practice today. So he said, you should go home from practice every single time filthy. He said, how do you get filthy? Well, if the ball's anywhere near you, you dive for it. If there's a play that there's any remote chance that you're going to get out, you slide or you dive. He said, if you're batting and there's any chance that the umpire might call the pitch a strike and you have 2 strikes on you, you don't strike out looking. He said, there's no such thing as 110%. No, it doesn't exist. So you can't do 90% today and then make it up with 110 tomorrow. It doesn't happen. You can't do 50 today and make it up with 150 tomorrow. And he challenged us. He challenged us to bring everything you got. While you're here, bring everything you got. You've got people like that, don't you? You want a game changer for your life? Put it in the calendar. Maybe by the end of this month, maybe by the end of July. It's the end of June now. Maybe by the end of July. Game changer, absolute game changer. Find one more person like that. Find one more person who challenges you to be a little bit closer to who you're capable of becoming. And they don't have to be people you know. Maybe it's somebody you don't know yet. Maybe it's somebody in your neighborhood. You say, I would love to know that person because what they're doing, something about them inspires me, encourages me, challenges me. And you're not going to find too many perfect people, right? You're not going to find too many perfect people, but find somebody who challenges you in some pocket. And again, it doesn't have to be somebody you know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's somebody you know. Maybe it's somebody you know and I think all of us have somebody like this, that take a deep breath. You don't spend enough time around that person. You don't spend enough time with that person. Maybe you don't allow that person to have enough influence in your life because they raise the bar on you. All of us, I think, if we're brutally honest, we've got some people like that, don't we? We've got some people that, whew, oh boy, when we're around them, we walk away thinking, all right, I got to step up my parenting. I got to step up my role as a spouse. I got to step up my contributions. You know, it's one of the reasons I love being involved in this in Carolina Catholic and in what you guys are doing. You challenge people to step up their game. You know, when years ago, I met a monk, a Benedictine monk, and he was that person all the time for me. You know, one day he said, Jonathan, you know the definition of the word question? I said, yeah, well, sure. I don't know, it's to ask something. He said, no, let's look at the root. He said, at the root, there's this word quest. With this word quest, he said, the quest means you're trying to find something. He said, some people, and he loved to smile when he would say these things, when he was about to hit me over the head with the frying pan, essentially. He said, Jonathan, some people, their quest is for an argument. He said, they ask a question with the intention of facilitating a disagreement, with the intent of facilitating maybe some gotcha points or gotcha moments. He said, there's a big difference between a quest for what's true and what's good and what's beautiful and a quest for disagreement, a quest for argument. You know, and it's interesting when on this journey, one of the books I ended up writing is a book called Who Are You Becoming? And the early draft I give to the monk. And he said, Jonathan, I like where it's going, but not entirely. And I said, what do you mean, brother? He said, well, if you could package this concept of becoming more patient, focused, having more courage, having more clarity, being better at affecting things, impacting things, being better at engaging people. He said, why? Why would you do this stuff? He said, to what end? What's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of becoming? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, is the purpose to advance your career? Is the purpose to increase your checking account, your net worth? Is the purpose to have more notoriety? And he just looked at me. He said, what's the point of your book? He said, maybe you got to add 2 letters in that book. Add 2 letters right here. Whose are you becoming? Because you can have a lot more courage. See, I study leadership, right? I study leadership and I try to coach people in this journey of leadership and do workshops and retreats on this topic. And we can do a lot of things for the wrong reasons, can't we? We can do a lot of things for the wrong reasons. I want to dig into one of the pillars I picked first. I didn't pick listening first. I didn't pick patience first. I picked a pillar. See that bridge, right? Pick a pillar and find simple ways to drive that pillar into your life. I picked the pillar of clarity. I picked the pillar of what are you chasing? I picked the pillar of have some direction. And I picked this pillar for a lot of reasons. One of them was this. I didn't have any. Actually, I had clarity, but it was clarity that I borrowed from the world. I had clarity that said, let's get this title, let's get this list of clients, let's get this net worth, let's get this income. But it wasn't my clarity. It wasn't my clarity. And I started looking for a clarity that wasn't mine anymore. And the monk challenged me, brother Antonio, he challenged me. He said, Jonathan, there's a couple books that I think you might enjoy, that you might wrestle with. You know, one of them was a book by Thomas Merton called The 7-Story Mountain. And I devoured that book. And Thomas Merton became a hermit. He was a writer, passionate about writing, passionate about trying to be a positive influence in the world. and then he became a monk. And it's funny because I think he didn't really want to become a monk. The first time he showed up at this monastery, they asked him. He showed up late at night after taking a train ride. He showed up late at night, and the monk, the brother that came to the door, said, have you come to stay? And I don't think he meant, have you come to stay for the rest of your life? But Thomas Merton said, I panicked in that moment. I panicked in that moment because I had not come to stay. I had come just to get away for a moment, just to find myself. And Thomas Merton famously kind of made the two phrases or two expressions popular of the difference between a true self and a false self. And I had chased a false self, a self that maybe the world gave me, a self that wasn't, it didn't bring out passion, not authentic passion, that I didn't, something felt wrong, something was off. There was advice given to two presidents over the course, actually every new president over the course of 40 years by a woman named Clare Boothe Luce. Clare Boothe Luce is a Catholic, passed away many years ago, but she gave the same advice to John F. Kennedy in 1960 and Ronald Reagan in 1980. Every newly elected, her family would donate money to whoever was close to winning, actually usually on both parties, both sides. And she would sit down with the newly elected president and give them the same advice. And Clare Boothe Luce's advice was this: greatness is one sentence. And she'd say that to these over and over. John F. Kennedy, greatness is one sentence. Ronald Reagan, greatness is one sentence. And what she was saying, it was incredible advice to a president. Oh, but it was incredible advice to any leader. Oh, wait, it was incredible advice to any person. What she was saying is that you want to be a great friend. You want to be a great parent. You want to be a great spouse. You want to be a great neighbor or citizen. You want to be a great business owner, entrepreneur, teacher. You want to be a great sports coach. You want to be great in the community service. You want to be great in your interactions in your parish. It requires clarity. One sentence, what she meant was, the world will come along and fill your plate, but your plate's already full. She was saying this to John F. Kennedy. JFK, your plate's full. You've got a lot of stuff to work on. People will come along and add things to it. And if you have not decided with a tremendous amount of clarity what's allowed on that plate, which by default means what's not allowed on that plate, no greatness. No greatness. I want to challenge you to think about this for a second. Imagine this. Imagine we hired, I got together with Bill and Carolina Catholic, and we knew you'd be here today. So we got four drones to follow you around for the last 2 weeks. They followed you. They filmed, they recorded your life for the last 2 weeks. And we're going to show now. We're going to show a time-lapse video of your last 2 weeks. When all of a sudden that you got that email, or you woke up in the morning and you checked social media. I don't know how many people, like, they keep their phone closer than their Bible. When they wake up in the morning, they engage with their phone before they say hello to their spouse. They say goodnight to their spouse so they can play with they can be in their phone or in their tablet or in their. If we watch that time-lapse video, well, let me change the question. Would you rather watch the video of your last 2 weeks or someone else's? The answer for most of us is someone else's. My last two, they were okay. They were, but can we do my one of my coworkers? But if we watch that video, would it scream clarity, simplicity, focus? Would it scream clarity, simplicity, focus, or would it scream busyness, complexity, and sometimes even chaos? What would it scream? And see, pick your pillar and find some simple ways to drive it into your life. If clarity was your pillar, the next time, I bet everybody in this interaction, everybody on the radio listening, I bet all of you have some meeting or something that you have on a regular basis. Maybe it's family dinner. Maybe it's a meeting at work. Maybe it's a nonprofit event. Maybe it's just an interaction. What if you go into this weekend with a clarity, write down a few words. I'd like this weekend to be all about this. Maybe you're spending the weekend with some family. Maybe you say, I want to create a few memories. That's it. See, greatness is one sentence. It requires this clarity. You go into family dinner tonight and you say, I would like to discuss the things my kids are passionate about. That's it. That's it. I just coached my youngest daughter's travel soccer team. And I go into the coaching season thinking, what's the sentence? What's the sentence? And I came up with 2 words, 2 focuses, but one phrase. Always try your hardest and always have a great attitude. Effort and attitude, effort and attitude, effort and attitude, effort and attitude, effort and attitude. Hustle and smile. And see, I had a mentor in the leadership program early in my career, and he was interesting. He was my assigned mentor. And one day he starts telling me, he says, Jonathan, people haven't heard you until they quote you. And he didn't say it once. He said it, I don't know, a dozen, 5 dozen times over the course of a few weeks. People haven't heard you, Jonathan. People haven't heard you. People haven't heard you until they quote you. People have not heard you until they quote you. They haven't heard you. They haven't heard you, Jonathan. They haven't heard you. Fanning, haven't heard you until they quote you. One day I'm in the hallway, big engineering company, we did aerospace engineering in this facility. And he's way down one end, almost all engineers in the hallways. He's way down one end of the building. And he sees me at the other end of this long, long hallway, a lot of people in the hallway. And he yells, Fanning! And I'm thinking, that's my assigned mentor right there. Doesn't God give us frying pans sometimes, wake up calls from some of the most unusual sources in some of the most creative ways? He says, Fanning, people haven't heard you. And I'm at the other end of the hallway, covered by hiding, thinking like, they heard you, buddy. They heard you. Be quiet. But he wanted me to finish the sentence until they quote you. Go back to the soccer example. Always try your hardest. Always have a great attitude. The kids haven't heard that sentence. They haven't heard that focus until they're repeating it. The parents, the message hasn't been delivered until it's being repeated. And I wanted the parents to say at halftime, you know what? We won the hustle game. Whether we scored all the goals, whether we brought more talent or size or strength, or we definitely tried harder in that first half. We definitely had a great attitude. No matter what happened in the game, we had a great attitude. People haven't heard you till they quote you. People haven't heard you till they quote you. Pick one relationship in your life. Pick one role in your life. Pick one little pocket of your life and say, I'm going to create more clarity right there. I'm going to create more clarity right there. And maybe talk with God. Say, God, what do you want me to be chasing in this part of my life? See, my older daughter's 15 and a half. Oh, closing in on 16. We should have a real long moment of silence for my wife and myself, right? To all of the parents who have teenagers out there, God help you and God bless you. But, I started thinking in that interaction between myself and my daughter, my oldest daughter, I said, what's the one message I want her to get? And my message for about almost 2 years now has been very simple. 3 words. Sometimes I'll tap her arm. Sometimes, it would be standing next to each other in church, hold, whatever. They say in the Our Father, holding it, I'll squeeze her hand 3 times. 3 times. Sometimes I'll tap 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes I'll text her these 3 words in one line, period. The second line, period. Third line, period. And the 3 words are, it's my sentence for that relationship. The 3 words are no matter what. See, I want her to know that I love her no matter what. Even if I don't like her behavior in the moment, even if I maybe don't like her focus in one of her classes, or the fact that she wants to skip a sport because one of her friends invited her over. The fact she's going to make decisions that I'm not going to like. And I want her to know, no matter what, 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 even if we're having a tough interaction, no matter what, I love her. And part of it is that the world is not telling her that. Her friends in school are not telling her that. Social media is absolutely not telling her that. They're telling her that it's conditional. It's conditional. How many likes did you get on the video? One of her friends posts a video, gets 175,000 views in a couple days. And the whole, everybody that knows this person's like, oh, how'd you do that? Wow. Has not. Now the world loves her. No matter what. 3 words. Pick one little pocket of your life. Can you do this? Can you create clarity in one pocket of your life? Can you do that? So I know the answer. Will you live it? Of course not always. So I started writing down some phrases for not just pockets of my life, but the whole of life. One of them was this. Wake people up. Wake people up. I wrote that down because I was not awake. I was going through life sleepwalking. I get the chance to speak all over the world, and my kids love traveling with me. One of their favorite places to go is Washington, D.C. And whenever I'm speaking anywhere near Washington, D.C., they say, can we come? And they've come many times, and they love to go to a few things. One of them is the zoo in Washington, D.C. And a lot of times I'll do a keynote, I get to sign books, and then I might meet up with them in the afternoon. And that zoo closes, I think, at 4:30, if I remember right. And at the end of the day, every time I've ever been there, people gather around this little island that has lions on it. There's a moat and you see the lions. And they gather around it, but they gather on one side of the island because the big male lion is there. And he goes up top in his little territory. And he paces back and forth. And he has this kind of almost like he's looking into the crowd saying, who would I eat if I were out there? And he'll walk sometimes fast, and then sometimes he'll slow down and just look. And then he roars. But he does this and it's a roar that's I don't know, it's this mix between scaring me and having me concerned for the lion, because it's a roar that's missing something. If you look at his eyes, it seems like the eyes are missing something. You see, the lion, he's not hunting anything anymore. And I see that all over the world. And I even see it in the mirror too often. What are you chasing? What are you chasing? I wrote down wake people up, and then I realized that was not the best sentence to start with, because the best sentence to start with was probably wake you up first. Wake you up first, because if you're not awake, there's an old Latin expression, nemo dat quod non habet, nemo dat quod non habet. You can't give what you don't have. Nemo dat quod non habet. And how do I wake people up if I'm not awake? How do I do that? And now I because I've always traveled a lot, I seek out things that wake me up. I seek out experiences that wake me up. Because let's be honest, you've made it through a day or a week or a month. You've absolutely made it through a day or a week or a month where you weren't awake. And it's not only true if you're an author or a speaker, it's true if you're in any relationships. You can't give to your friends what you don't have. You can't give to your spouse what you don't have. You can't give to your kids what you don't have. You can't give to your community what you don't have. Catherine of Siena, I love this expression. I was in Siena right before COVID. And see, one of the things I love to do is every chance I get, I try to touch experiences that just, they get me. Catherine of Siena, she said, "Si chi Dio voleva che tu fossi incenderai al mondo. Si chi Dio voleva che tu fossi incenderai al mondo." I wish I knew what it meant, but I just love the expression, don't you? No, I'm kidding. Si chi Dio voleva che tu fossi means Be who God meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire. Be who God meant you to be. Be who God meant you to be. I was speaking in England, and I was stuck in England over the course of a long weekend. And I said, what can I do that will wake me up, that will set me on fire? And I decided to take a ferry across to Normandy and walk the beaches of Normandy early in the morning when the D-Day soldiers arrived, and walk the beaches at low tide, because they decided to land at low tide. They decided to land at low tide, which meant they had to walk through heavy, wet sand for much longer before they got to shelter. But they decided to do that. Because they knew more of the mines would be exposed, and they calculated the death totals in each scenario. And they said it's more likely that we'll have more survivors make it to the beach if we land at low tide and they have to run through heavy, wet sand carrying this massive amount of weight. And I did it. I went at low tide and I ran through the wet sand. And you do not run in heavy, wet sand. Your feet are clogging, and you look up and the pill box, it's like a living museum. And I collapsed in front of the first rock I made it to hide behind. I collapsed there, and I was overwhelmed. 5,000 casualties in the first hour in Normandy. 5,000 casualties in the first hour alone. There was one soldier killed about 90 seconds after he landed on the beach. His name was Walter Geldon. He was from Pennsylvania, near Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And he was celebrating his third wedding anniversary that morning. They sang happy anniversary to him on the boat on the way over. And 90 seconds later, after he hits the beach, he's dead. 58 years later, 2002, his wife, Anna, is buried by his side. 58 years later. See, and I tell you this story because you and I, we have so many experiences. We have so many things that happen around us. They have the potential to wake us up. Collect a few more. Reflect on a few more. When you sit down to watch a movie or watch TV or watch some show or watch whatever, pick one that wakes you up. Pick stories that wake you up. Pick experiences that wake you up this summer. Go through, you're going into the summer, say, there's one thing, I'll do one thing that'll really wake me up. I'll do something this summer that'll really wake me up. It doesn't have to be a long experience. It could be just a Saturday morning. It could be going to some place and walking through it and thinking about what happened there. It could be reading a book with one of your kids. I wrote a book a couple of years ago called I Once Was Lost. And I wrote the book. It's not a true story. It's a fiction, but it's sort of true. I read the Chronicles of Narnia with my daughters when they were very little. All 7 books in order. All 7 books, not just The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but all 7. I love The Magician's Nephew. I love The Last Battle. I love The Silver Chair. I think those 3. Well, of course, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe are my favorites. But we didn't watch the movies. We read the books in order. And I wrote the book I Once Was Lost. It's a fiction about an uncle who reads the stories to one of his nephews because his brother-in-law passed away, and he had made this promise. And an experience like that, reading the Chronicles of Narnia with one of your kids, or a niece, or a nephew, or a family member, or kids in the neighborhood, can be one of those moments that just wakes you up, and you think, "Wow, what an amazing, amazing adventure!" Clarity. Pick the pillar of clarity. My first pillar. What pillar will you start with? If you knew it would work, if you knew you could pick a pillar and find simple ways to drive that pillar into your life, where would you start? So I started with clarity. I'm going to talk about my second pillar. Actually, it was my third pillar that I picked. I'm going to dig into the third pillar I picked. I picked courage. And see, at first I thought, okay, how do you practice one of these pillars? Maybe you practice it for a month. My personality, that didn't work. My personality, I like to focus on something, and then I like to hop to something else. So my personality, I ended up saying, let me try a week and a week. A week with pillar 1, a week with pillar 2. my personality, I didn't do great with that. So I finally said, I'll do, you know what I'll do? I'll do an hour on a specific day, or I'll do maybe a whole day. So you could start where you are. Start with the personality that God gave you, and find some pillar and say, how can I build it into my life? Courage, my second pillar. I started thinking, how do you practice courage? How do you practice courage? And I was traveling, I was flying back home from a speaking engagement. And I thought, I had this idea. It was a Friday night, kind of late as I'm flying back. And I knew by the time I got there, my kids would be in bed. And I was about to call them to tell them good night. So I'm landing in the airport, going to call them. I still had to go get my car, drive home. And I had this thought in the plane. I had this thought, we'll do Brave and Daring Day. It was a Friday night. I said, we'll do Brave and Daring Day on Saturday. And I told my oldest daughter, she was only 5.5 at the time. I said, we'll do Brave and Daring Day. I said, Ella, tomorrow we're doing Brave and Daring Day. Brave and Daring Day. And I had no idea what Brave and Daring Day would be, but I knew we could do stuff that it takes courage to do, right? Not complicated. See, part of the beauty of what I'm talking about, of this who are you becoming concept, is that if you pick a pillar and think about it enough, especially if you pray about it, you will find a lot of ways to practice that pillar. And I just had this idea, let's do Brave and Daring Day. So I tell my daughter, Ella, she's 5.5, tomorrow morning, we're doing Brave and Daring Day. Love you. See you in the morning. We'll have breakfast and then do Brave and Daring Day. Next morning, we're having breakfast. And she says, what's Brave and Daring Day? And I really hadn't figured it out yet. I just knew we'll do stuff that you have to be brave and daring to do. That's what I've got. And she's looking at me, and I said, well, we're gonna do things that you have to be brave to do. And she immediately gets this like little two horns popping out of her head, She looks at me with this smile, and she says, can I climb the thing in the playground that mommy won't let me climb? And I thought, maybe, and it's funny because I didn't answer, but she could read my mind. She said, Daddy, we don't have to tell mommy. And I thought, oh, there you go. It's Brave and Daring and Deceitful Day. Like, we're going to practice courage and lying to one of our parents at the same time. Two pillars. So I won't tell you the rest of that piece of the story, but we did go to the playground, and she's looking at this thing, and it was sort of this wooden. It wasn't designed to be climbed. It was like a lattice that held up, nice, plants or whatever. And there's a tree next to it, but it's not really a tree. It's almost like a shrub that has branches that are not really big enough to hold much weight. And she says, I'm going to go up the tree. And I'm watching, and the thing's only maybe 12 feet high or so. And she's climbing, and I'm thinking, okay, brave and daring means maybe I back up a little bit and let her do this. Oh boy. And I do. I back up, and I'm watching her, and this shrub she's climbing is swaying. And I'm thinking, if she falls, this is going to be an interesting day, an interesting start to Brave and Daring Day. But she gets up high, and she's hanging upside down like a sloth almost. And the branches kind of going back and forth over this lattice. And she finally releases and ends up on the lattice. And it's not flat. There's no wood. There's no roof on this thing. It's just pergola, I guess you call it. She's kind of holding on to a few things, and she is beaming. She's 5.5. She's got the biggest smile of her life on her face. And why? I mean, why is she smiling like that? And I take a picture right at that moment, right? She's beaming because she did something that the day before she wasn't sure she was capable of doing. I mean, not only that, she did something that she wasn't sure that I thought she was capable of doing. And as parents, and I mean, it doesn't matter, you're in a leadership role somewhere in your life, whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not. But if you don't lead your life, somebody will tell you what to do the Friday after Thanksgiving. You bet. They will tell you should make reservations for Valentine's Day. You can't go out to eat the day before or the day after. Not okay. right? They'll tell you if you're not leading in your life, someone else will volunteer to lead for you. And so often we want to build confidence in people around us. We want to build confidence in our kids. We want to build confidence in our coworkers. We want to build confidence in our teams. We want to build confidence in ourselves. But you don't build confidence by patting somebody on the back for something they already knew they could do and they don't think it's a big deal. You build confidence by helping somebody do something that yesterday they weren't sure that they could do, or they weren't sure that you thought they were capable of doing, by helping build actual capability. My daughter's pumped. She's pumped. I take a picture, and as I take the picture, this boy comes running over to me. He was probably 8 or 9, older than her by a few years and a little bit bigger than her. And he almost bumps into me and he says, "How did she get up there?" And he's so excited. He said, did you help her get up there? Could you help me go up there? Could you put me up there? Can I climb it? What did she climb? And I'm looking at this kid thinking, like, I don't know who you are. And I'm thinking, go climb it. And I didn't say anything because his mother came over, and his mother, I joke that his mother came over like you ever see a duck land on a pond? They come in, their wings are out, they put their paddles out, sort of like water skis, and his mother came over very quickly, like that duck. Wood chips are flying, and she scooped up her 8 or 9-year-old son and pet him and feed him and named him George, and she hugged her little guy and she reminded him that he was afraid of heights, which was wonderful because he had forgotten. He was afraid of heights. She reminded him. See, part of the reason I add that to this conversation is this. I don't think that mother decided that she had a pillar of being afraid of the world that she wanted to help drive into her son's life. I don't think she had sat down and decided that. I don't think this 8 or 9-year-old kid decided he wanted to be afraid of stuff. If we do not pick pillars intentionally, and you don't have to do it the way I'm describing it. I mean, you could make this so simple. You could every Sunday sit down in church, say, God, what do you want me to work on this week? And help me to work on it. Maybe add one sentence to that. God, what do you want me to work on this week? How do you want me to work on it? And how do you think I did with what I was working on last week? I mean, game changer. Jonathan,
man.
If we don't pick stuff, the world picks it for us. The world picks it for us.
Absolutely. Jonathan, I just want to say, man, you have been uplifting me for the last hour, man. This is so amazing. Thank you so much. Your ministry is incredible. Would you give us your website again?
Sure. It's my name, jonathanfanning.com.
Awesome.
Jonathan, with no H, though. It's JONATHAN Fanning.com, jonathanfanning.com. And I would love for your listeners, one of my mentors in life is this monk. People that knew him just called him the monk or brother. And for the last year of his life, he died of cancer very, very quickly. And for the last year of his life, he agreed with me to write a book based on our arguments, based on our conversations, sometimes quite heated. And he was unbelievably passionate, articulate, brilliant, but also human, very human. I mean, he would say things that you would just say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like one day he says, Jonathan, a priest is a garden hose. He said, you leave the hose on the lawn too long, it kills the lawn. The lawn doesn't need the hose. The lawn needs the water that's flowing through the hose. And your job and my job, it's the same. Don't get confused. Don't be the hose sitting on people. Give them the water that flows through you. And remember, it's not you. It's flowing through you.
Yeah.
But I want to give your listeners, your audience, a free bunch of clips from those conversations. I took out about 20 of my favorite little clips.
Wonderful.
And put them into audio and video. So if they find me, jonathanfanning.com/monk, MONK, lowercase, just www.jonathanfanning.com/monk. They can listen to some of those conversations and be challenged, be inspired, be encouraged. It's a wake-up call. I mean, he's a game changer. He was a game changer.
No, it definitely is. And again, folks, I really want you to head over to Jonathan's website. Please do that. And this has really been Who Are You Becoming, right? And so we're so blessed to have you. We hope you definitely come back with us again, the future, I know there's local hosts that would love to have you on, our shows and different things, Jonathan. So thank you so much for being with us today. I want to remind our listeners, too, that right now is the time to donate. It's 1-800-857-2909. 1-800-857-2909 is the number you can call to donate. As Jonathan said, what are you becoming? Well, we are becoming, hopefully, the Catholic radio station in North Carolina. But we can't do it without your financial support, folks. So once again, 1-800-857-2909. We've got to take a short break. We're going to return you to network programming. And up next is Jason Murphy from The Obligation. And he's going to be doing some interviews for the next couple hours. So we're super excited to have him in our studio with us. So, Jonathan, once again, thank you so very much for all your ministry. It's been an absolute blessing.
Thank you so much, Bill. God bless. Keep serving. Keep leading.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to take you back to that network programming right now.
You are listening to the Carolina Catholic Media Network Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon. Operators are standing by right now to take your tax-deductible pledge. Call 1-800-857-2909. That's 1-800-857-2909. Or donate online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. We now rejoin network programming already in progress.